So a few years ago, a really good friend of mine got me the Random Access Memories LP. This started me down the path of collecting vinyl and wanting to play it. I had an old Techniques turntable that I set up and started using. It was something that I picked up off of eBay several years ago. Unfortunately, the cover for it was quite damaged. The hinges on the back of it were broken, and there were scuff marks all over it. I've since tried restoring the cover using some techniques that I picked up off of YouTube videos, where you sand it and then use progressively finer sanding paper, and ultimately end up using some type of a polishing compound. In doing so, I had some good results, but I unfortunately am rather impatient and tried to speed it along with a Dremel using a buffing wheel. That didn't turn out too well. So what I'm going to do is a different technique that I've seen people use on headlights, where for a car, where they will sand it down and then they will spray it with clear paint, and it makes it look nice and clear and new again. So I haven't seen anybody doing this on YouTube. I figured I'd record it and put it out there if it helps anybody else. Well, let's see if we can restore a turntable cover. Hold my monster. Here's the turntable that we're going to try to repair the dust cover on. As you can see, there's quite a bit of scuffing in here still. It's actually better than it was. But while I was trying to sand and then polish it, I tried using the buffing wheel with the Dremel. It did quite a bit of damage. Not really going to be able to fix this with that same method. So instead, we're going to sand it down rougher and paint it. Before we do that, though, we need to do something about the hinges. You can see back here, there's these plastic hinges that, or tabs, I guess, that go inside of this hinge here, but they've broken off. Both of them have done that. This appears to be a fairly common thing with this type of dust cover. What we're going to do is grind this off, and in a later video, we'll replace them with something else, but I need to get them out of the way for the time being. Alright, so we have the cover here, the dust cover. I've put down a towel to protect my table, just an old beach towel. I'm going to use the Dremel with a grinding bit here to try to remove these clips that were here that were used by the hinges. I apologize, this might get a little loud. If so, maybe I'll mute the video a bit. So here we go. Alright, well, we got it pretty close here. What I'll probably do is when I actually sand the dust cover, I'll try to sand this down a little bit further. Now, this area is going to end up being covered the way that I want to do the hinges, but still, I want to get it somewhat smooth, so we'll probably do that with the sanding. Again, those hinges will probably be in a separate video, but I do need to get them out of the way now because I don't want to try to file this thing down or grind it down after I paint it. I'm going to start off with some 400 grit sandpaper to try to get rid of some more of this right here where those tabs used to be. So I'm just got a sanding block with sandpaper on there. I could probably go with a coarser grit, but really it doesn't take much with this acrylic. This stuff wears down pretty quickly, so we'll go ahead and try to get those flushed out to the area around them. The way that I'm going to try to do these hinges, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'd like to get it at least close to being flat.
Okay, the next area that I'm going to work on is the front here, where I tried to use the Dremel with the buffing wheel and created a good bit of damage. Before I do that, though, I'm going to take off these little rubber feet here that help to protect the surface of the turntable. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fix this section, but I'm gonna try. Hopefully, if I can get it sanded down to where you can't see the swirl marks anymore, the paint will do the rest. That's the goal, at least. So, I'm gonna give it a shot here. All right, it's pretty close. Just give it a little bit more. All right, well, it's not perfect, but it's close. So I'm going to go ahead and sand down the rest of this. I'm also going to do the inside. The inside's got a few issues as well, so we'll do that as well. Then I'm going to go over this with the 400 and then go back over it with the 600 grit. All right, I've sanded most of this down with 400 grit. I was thinking about going to 600 grit, but I think I'm just going to stick with the 400 now. However, the inside of the dust cover right here is kind of hard to get to with the sanding block. So for that, I took the paper off, and I'm just going to try to do that by hand here. All right, we got the dust cover pretty well sanded here all the way around, and the inside as well. So I'm going to go rinse this off and then try to give it a little deeper cleaning, and should be time for paint. All right, so I rinsed the cover off to try to get rid of any of the loose dust and everything that's on it. I do want to give it a quick rub down with some rubbing alcohol to try to remove any oils or anything like that that may be left on it. So for this, I'm going to be wearing gloves so that I don't get my finger oils all over it and create problems with the paint. And for this, I am using a microfiber towel. That way, hopefully, we don't leave any lint behind on it either. Gotta make sure to get all of the sides and every part of it here. Okay, we'll let this sit for a bit, make sure that all the alcohol is evaporated off of it, and then we'll start painting. All right, we're outside now, ready to start painting. You'll see that I have the cover sitting on a box here. The goal is to be able to take it inside to finish drying once I'm done painting it without touching it. You can also see through the cover still a little bit here the holes that I put in the box. I'm going to paint the one side, do a couple of coats on it, let it dry a tad, then flip it over. Those holes are to hopefully allow air to get inside of the cover to allow it to continue drying. Okay, I've done a couple of coats, actually probably about 4 on the inside of this. Now we're going to try to spray the outside. You can see it's still pretty hazy, of course, because the outside was sanded as well. So let's see how this turns out. Starting to be able to see through it, so this might have some problems still. Need to go around and get the edges here as well. All right, we'll let that dry and come back at it in a few minutes here and do another coat. Well, as the paint's been drying, it's starting to get its haze back. So, I don't know. This technique may not really be working out. We'll try a few more coats here and see if we get any positive results. Well, the other paint wasn't working terribly well. That was like an automotive clear coat. So I've switched to using a clear lacquer here. It's a little bit thicker. Hopefully it'll fill the scratches a little bit better. Getting a really good gloss on it, but it's still really frosted underneath it. I'm thinking the inside might need to be done again, which unfortunately means I'll have to flip this over. So I'll have to wait for it to dry to do that. Well, put quite a bit of clear on here, and it's just not turning out too well. There is a considerable amount of shine, but unfortunately, if you can see that right there, something has blown into it. So what I'm going to do at this point is just stop. Let this dry, try to get that speck out of there, and I think I'll use some rubbing compound, see if maybe that helps clear up some of the haze here. I'm not terribly hopeful, though. Well, here we have the cover after I painted it. You can see there is a considerable amount of haze, but you can also see the shine coming through in it as well. I don't know, kind of hopeful for using some rubbing compound on it. If nothing else, maybe I'll get a kind of neat, shiny, frosted custom turntable cover. Yeah. We'll say that's what I was going for. Well, the rubbing compound helped some, but as you can see, where the grooves were from sanding, they carried through the paint. So this was not the easy fix I was hoping for. What we're going to try now is using some sandpaper. I'm going to use 1000 grit and then 2000 to see if I can smooth that out a little bit and maybe get this a little bit clearer. Well, after several coats of clear, a lot of sanding, some buffing, some more clear, I have accidentally made a custom frosted turntable dust cover. So there you go. Didn't get the results that I was going for, but hey, at least it's different.